arrived that would like to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we have no unfinished business, so we're moving to new business. Our first item for formal action is consideration of the contract agreement between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel for the 2016-2017 school year. Dr. Wilcox.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to announce that we have completed a successful negotiation with the Washington County Educational Support Personnel Group. I think that this year's conversations were cordial, they were thoughtful, and they set the stage for, I think, another great school year. Most of you as board members know that we will have lots of opportunities to discuss the contract in this coming year. This was a year that we really focused on one issue and money. We're pleased in that we have been able to afford a step increase for all the employees on the educational support personnel scale. We also were able to make a small improvement in the scale, and this is effective July 1, so all of our new employees, or all of our employees, are going to benefit from this contract as soon as you hopefully successfully pass that. And with that, I'm going to invite to the front of the room Mr. Bowers, Jimmy, if you want to come up, and Anne Marie Hines, who is the WCESP president. Jimmy is the negotiations chair. If you guys want to make a comment, you can.
Before we vote, and then we'll take a motion.
Vote, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thought you may want to make some comments before we vote.
We're also very pleased that we were able to come to a successful completion this year in June, not later. So that's good news for our employees.
I don't think you need to be as close.
Thank
We've
you.
added a new little gadget, so I think you're good.
Very nice. And we appreciate the board's consideration of this agreement. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Bowers?
I
What she
fully
said?
support what Anne Marie says.
All right. This is a formal action and requires a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the contract agreement between the Washington County Board of Education and Washington County Educational Support Personnel, Inc. for the 2016-2017 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? 5. Abstention? Student concurs. It has passed 5-0, so we have a contract.
So, Mrs. Brightman, if you'll come down here, and we will sign the agreement.
Thank you. Start there, and I'll pass it down this way.
Go ahead.
I think it's yours. Yes. You got to slide multiple times. No surprise.
Oops.
I'm good. Actually, you have to sign it multiple times. Sorry.
There's another one. Pass that back down.
There's 2 there. There's one more underneath. So there's 3 copies.
Should be 3 altogether. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Jimmy, thank you. Thanks.
This is for For sure. Just kind of remind she, Erica.
I evidently called the previous vote incorrectly, so on this vote, on this item, it was a 5-0 from the membership, and you abstained,
Yes, abstained.
which I thought I called that, did I not? I said concur. I apologize. Thank you for the correction. Ms. Chekovic, the records, thank you. And again, I would like to really just talk about the value of ESP and the importance of the negotiation. I think both teams did a great job of coming together and finding common ground. And I would like to say that the support folks in our organization are so valued. They help with our students every day, the paraprofessionals, custodial or bus drivers. It's all about the safety, the facilities, and I appreciate the team effort. And I'm sure some of my colleagues will have some comments.
Well, as they contemplate, I will say just a couple of things, if I may. First of all, I'd like to say to Anne Marie and Jimmy, thank you for the professionalism that you bring to the table and for the professionalism that you bring to the issues that your team members experience each and every day. We really do appreciate that. Oftentimes we're at loggerheads over an issue, but there's no lack of respect there. We appreciate the work that you bring, the dignity and the value that you bring to the table each and every day. So I want to say thank you to both of you in particular. I also want to take a moment and say to, and I always get in trouble if I do something like this. Jamie's going to stand up, but I do want to say also that, Sean, I want to thank you for the leadership that you provide as a UNISERV director. You are a thoughtful problem solver, and we've appreciated the opportunity to work with you, so thank you.
And I would just say it really shows that you can lead from any position in any chair in any organization. So thank you very much again. Yes, Mrs. Harshman.
I just would like to thank you for dedicating your time and energy to serving your group and to serving it well. So thank you for giving of that and doing such a splendid job.
Additional comments?
Madam President,
Yes.
just very quickly, a thank you, first of all. Secondly, I think it bears stating that your efforts and efforts of our administrators and of our teachers, there's not one individual in this organization who doesn't play an integral part in the education of our children. We appreciate everything that you do, and hopefully we're looking forward to another good year.
Ms. Fisher.
I don't know what additional items I could add to what my colleagues have said so far, so I'll just say ditto to what they've said and thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no further comments, we'll move on to our next formal action, consideration of a contract agreement between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Association of Supervisors and Administrators for the 2016-2017 school year. I believe we have Marjorie Gray with us coming forward.
Why don't you bring the entire team if you would like. Brian, I know you were going to be part. Maureen, I think you were going to be part of this as well. And
Dr. Wilcox.
Madam President, this is an important step for us as well because this is the second of our three bargaining, our partners. It's important to point out to the community that with the administrators, we don't truly bargain. We have a process called Meet and Confer, where we meet on a regular basis and talk about the issues that are important to the members of the Washington County Administrative and Supervisory team. These conversations are always collaborative. They are always fruitful, at least from my perspective as your superintendent. Daryl Marriott, who's the president of this organization, could not be here today because he's attending to some personal business, family business. I believe he had a funeral that he's attending. And that said, once again, it was a earnest and honest conversation, but I want to say once again that the administrators, I think, chose to lead by being the first group to say, we understand the district's financial condition, we understand how we go forward together. So I want to say thank you to each of you for that. And now I'll turn it back to you, Madam President.
Any comments before I call for a motion?
I guess I would just comment by saying that, as Dr. Wilcox shared, it is a mutually beneficial process for us to agree and for both groups to come together and, take a look at where we are and where we need to go. And we do appreciate the fact that we know there are rough financial times and we just have to look at the counties around us and we see it. So we always appreciate the fact that I think we both look out for each other's best interests.
Thank you. Again, this is a formal action and it requires a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the contract agreement between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Association of Supervisors and Administrators, WCASA, for the 2016-2017 school year.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Any questions, comments from my colleagues? Yes,
Just
Mr. Ridenour.
to reiterate what I've said to our ESP group, we appreciate all that you do. Each and every person, again, is integral to what we try to do as an organization, what we try to do for our students in this county. So our thanks to you, our thanks that this was a process that seemed, at least to us, seamless, and hopefully it's another great year.
Seeing no other comments, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify. 5 abstentions. Ms. Greenwald. Motion passes. We have a contract. Thank you very much.
I'll go here, you go there.
They get one.
Yes.
You get one. Yes. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you so much. Marjorie, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I'll give yours too.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Okay, any additional comments for our ANS team members? I would just say I've been impressed with the caliber of leadership in our schools and here at CES, and I'm amazed at the amount of productive work we've accomplished over the last few years, and I'm excited about the future of the system. And I appreciate both of these groups being with us here today and letting the public see the individuals who serve their students and serve the school community. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on in the agenda to a consent agenda. We have 7 items. Ms. Freeman, welcome. Is this your second to your last?
promise you I'm not counting down.
You have a calendar in your office. What do you want to bet?
I bet she doesn't, actually.
I look forward to helping to transition the new person to do things as well as I've tried to do them over my
Thank
years
you
here
so
at the school
much.
system. As Mrs. Brightman mentioned, there are 7 procurements on the board's agenda this afternoon. These items were discussed by the Procurement Review Committee in its meeting on June 27th, and Dr. Wilcox has authorized me to present those to you this afternoon.
Very good. Consent agenda, we do need a motion on this.
Madam President, I move to approve the following bids and proposals. First, security camera systems and services. Third, renewal to Atlantic Security Systems at bid unit prices. Fresh local produce to Greensburg Farm, Charles Linton, Reed Farms, and Reinhardt Orchards for as-needed purchases based upon availability and price. Professional design service for HVAC replacement at Boonesboro Elementary School to RHL Engineering, Inc. at $78,860. Professional design services for HVAC replacement at Hancock Middle Senior High School to Geip Associates, Inc. at $81,650. Software license and service renewal to LTS Education Systems at $239,500 for elementary schools and $69,500 for middle schools. And fruit slush drinks to Lebanon United Jobbers, Inc. at $179.65 for a 30-gallon container.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Floor is open for questions or comments on the consent agenda. Mrs. Williams.
Yes, I have a question about Stride Academy. I don't know
Which item? I think we have 2 of them, number 3 and
well,
number
both,
4.
actually.
All right.
Mhm. The information that's presented in our packet mentions the fact that we've been using Stride Academy since 2014, I believe, in our elementary school. And the information speaks to how we use it. So my question is, what as a system have we done to evaluate the effectiveness of Stride Academy on student learning and achievement that would be of value to us in making the decision to continue with Stride Academy in our elementary school? And likewise, what data do we have that supports the expansion then into our middle schools?
Dr. Wilcox.
So we have answers, and I thank you in advance for the questions. I'm going to ask Matt Summer, who's the Director of Elementary Programs, and Dr. Pugh to come forward, and they will address the specific questions that you have and be prepared to engage in follow-ups. Lisa, I'm not trying to make you sit aside, but at the same time, they have the content area expertise in this. So Dr. Pugh, do you want to talk a little bit, address Mrs. Williams' questions, but if there's any other information you want to provide, feel free to do that as well.
Sure. Your first question about what we've done to evaluate the effectiveness, we use program monitoring that is part of the program. We also monitor usage data, including during school and after school. We have participated in staff surveys and student surveys, and all of those data points point to us continuing to use the program as a supplemental resource for teachers. The second question that you had asked was about what data do we have, and I want to make sure that we have the same timeline. In 2014, we started with our elementary schools, and just last year through the approval process, both through procurement, through changing the budget that was approved, to move money from textbooks to contracted services. We expanded into middle school just last year. We started a little bit of a later implementation in the middle schools, and then we added the accessibility through the use of the iPads later in the year. So we have 1 full year of data for elementary school and a partial year for middle school. But based on that data, we've put together some information. You get quite a few reports from the software. And our students in Washington County Public Schools have shown growth in 8 out of the 11 math concepts that are included in the programming. And number and operations, statistics and probability, and functions have shown the highest level of increase. The way we use this in our content is that it is the basic level, skill level. It's helping students to develop fluency, fact fluency, quickness with the basic skills. So this has really helped our teachers because it adjusts to the students' levels. So you could have a class of 24 students, and the students start and they take some assessments, and then the program itself adjusts, either pacing forward or slowing down and allowing for students to have more repetition. So we feel that it's been really successful in that, for math and for our teachers to be able to deliver that individualized instruction. And then Washington County Public School students have shown growth in all 5 areas of reading. Foundational skills has the highest percentage of growth across the county among those factors. So we felt that that was strong information, strong data that would encourage us to continue to use it and continue to be maybe more precise about when and where and how we use it, matching with our new curriculum.
Thank you. Any additional follow-up questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams? Just want to be sure she was completed. Mrs. Harshman?
You mentioned 8 out of 11 and that the growth in reading, how is that different from years that we did not have that? Did we have, I mean, is it a vast improvement or over what we had prior to installing the Stride?
So the way that it measures is different because it adjusts. So we don't have a prior year's measure to compare it to. We have our first full year of implementation just this year.
But we don't have a growth number for the previous years?
Correct, not in those same categories, calculated the same way. It would be 2 different measures if we had different measures.
The progress monitoring assessment does look at beginning to the end of the year growth. And that measures based off of where the students began the year and where they finished the year. They have 4 assessments that are given right around the time when the marking periods change. And what that looks at is those basic skills, and it gives collective data to see the growth. And we showed growth in those. Now, we didn't have it the previous year because we began the full implementation in November of 2014. This year, with the full year implementation, we were able to look from the beginning to the end of the year. So we'll be able to compare that year after year based off of full year implementations.
That's only with the Stride.
Correct. That's with Stride data, yes.
So we have nothing prior to that as to the amount of growth the students experience from the beginning of the year to the end, correct?
We use other measurements. I mean, we have our MAP assessment data. We use other internal for Fonnes and Pinnell assessment data. We have those, but they're different measurements that we look at in terms of measuring student growth from one period of time to the next.
And Stride measurements are better than those?
Well, they're based off of the Common Core curriculum, and they mirror with the state curriculum. So we are measuring similar concepts and looking at those concepts, so we can use that as another data point.
Okay.
Additional questions, Mrs. Harshman?
No, I'm still a little confused, but.
Okay. Maybe it would help my colleagues as well as the public if we give a little background on how we vet these kind of programs when we bring them into the school system. I believe this went through our standing board committee, curriculum and instruction.
Sure, I have a summary.
So that might be helpful, and also I believe it is part of our digital plan that the board supported, so maybe that would be helpful if you gave some background.
We began as a way to expose teachers and students to the use of adaptive software and using incentive gaming, which was new and different in our district. This was all in support of the digital learning plan. It came with easy-to-use lesson planning tools and quick formative assessments that allowed a teacher to adapt immediately. They still had some control over what they could do with the feedback, but the program itself also moved students through the levels based upon their performance. It is a state-of-the-art adaptive software built on the latest platform to ensure that it's student-focused, that what they do is really appropriate for each individual student, which is unique. It takes advantage of game theory in a manner that consistently reinforces what we're hoping to accomplish through our digital learning plan. How we came to it: in September of 2014, the procurement committee responded to a purchasing request from Mr. Semler to purchase Stride Academy. On October 28th, in a curriculum and instruction meeting, it was discussed, Stride Academy. There was a presentation given with an overview of what it was, the theory behind it, why we were interested in it. Committee members actually got to experience a little bit about what that program was and how it uses the different features and what the teacher can control, turning on and off. In April of 2015, there was another curriculum instruction meeting where we talked about blended learning, and we use Apex at our high school level, and we referenced Stride at the middle, or at that time at the elementary school, hoping to expand to our middle schools. Again, for the purpose of remediation, response to intervention, using it in summer school as a resource, and helping students to recover their particular knowledge of a content in a marking period to reduce the number of failures for a particular concept. In May, there was another curriculum instruction meeting where we did the reorganization, the transition to the new curriculum instruction and assessment group. We talked about great teaching and how it personalizes learning opportunities for students through relationships and through access to digital learning opportunities. We talked about great curriculum and how great curriculum offers access to a variety of delivery models, including online and blended learning opportunities for all students. And then June, we had a superintendent's report that we forwarded on literacy, school counseling, and instructional technology, talking about the resources that we had allocated to support our literacy initiatives. And Stride was one of several that were mentioned there. The e-books, the RAS Kids, and some online texts and resources were also discussed. We talked about the professional development that was included for the various initiatives, the Framework for Teaching, Foundations, Lucy Calkins, and Stride, all at that meeting. August 25th, at a CNI meeting, we talked about the materials that were distributed based on our elementary school professional development that was held in the fall. And on that feedback, the feedback question was, what's one next step that you plan to implement? And we had one of our first grade teachers say, the use of Stride in my classroom, because you can use it both during class and outside of school. In September 14th of 2015, we had a procurement meeting, again, talking about Stride and the expansion of Stride. We had a consent agenda approval of the Stride contract renewal for elementary and the purchase for middle school in September of 2015. We actually then, the finance committee spoke about it a little bit to move some money from your typical textbook into contracted services so that we could bring our resources in line with the digital learning plan and where we were headed with that. We also spoke about it again during the approval of the first quarter fiscal 2016 budget adjustments in order to approve that and formalize that. It was included as part of the digital learning plan as one of the Washington County Public School approved curriculum items to support implementation in the classrooms. It was then again referenced in a March 2016 literacy update. And most recently in June, there was another memo from Mr. Semler to Ms. Freeman to purchase, again, renewal of the contract for both elementary and middle school. And then we had a procurement meeting at June 27th where that was discussed. And then today, before you, you have the request to renew both contracts.
Thank you. That was a good in-depth answer. Additional questions?
Yeah, thank you for your extensive and thorough report. I appreciate the information.
Thanks.
I think just as we turn it back to the board, it's just a couple of other things. It's important to know that in Stride, we have over 15,000 kids now registered to use Stride. Of that, last year they answered almost 15 million questions, 14,600,000 questions. That took over 7.2 million minutes, if I'm correct, in terms of their time. What's really exciting for me is that 12% of our overall usage was actually done at home after 6 p.m., meaning that our kids are taking this technology home as the board had envisioned in the digital learning plan and having access to curricular resources at home outside the traditional school day. And again, I think it's very important to realize that Stride really helps to build on those foundational skills in both literacy and math that will enable our kids to do higher level things with classroom teachers. So in another way, it's responsive to what teachers have said to us, which is create more time for me to teach my kids by taking some of these foundational skills that teachers have to spend their time on and moving that outside the day. Then the teachers are able to be more engaged with them on the more important things, the higher order thinking things. So again, thank you to the team for bringing it to our kids, and thank you, Lisa, for bringing it to the process.
Thank you. Additional questions? We have 4 other items on the consent agenda. Any other questions? I would just move to item 2, one of my favorite, fresh local produce for food and nutrition services. Would like to just give a little background on that. As written by Mrs. Freeman and her group, some of the thought in the process behind soliciting local produce. And the proposals were solicited for providing a variety of fresh, locally grown produce, raw fruit, and vegetables for pickup or delivery to 9 schools. Those are our base kitchens and the CES. This facility we're in here right now during having the meeting. Fresh produce is served in all of our district schools. Proposals were invited from farmers or other food producers of raw products which can be served fresh or used for scratch cooking. When was the last time the public heard that we were doing scratch cooking in our schools? That's, I think, great. In the school food services program, bidders were encouraged to propose any produce item which may be available locally for consideration. So I think our nutrition, food and services nutrition department under magnificent leadership at every level, school and here, are doing everything we can to buy local and bring the produce in. I believe we're at about 10% of each of our plates or trays, assuming that student has milk, is locally produced.
That's what Jeff told me.
I don't know, Jeff, I'm bragging on your group. If you'd like to come up and brag some more, that would be great.
Well, he's on his way. I can't offer a positive factoid. When we bid this would be the 3rd year I think we've done this bid. We've actually doubled the number of participants. We had 2 companies, local farms that were participating, and now we have 4 sources for these products.
And I think we help some of the bidders understand how to handle our requirements, and I think that's been a big help. Jeff?
Absolutely. I think the point we tried to make the most with our bidders at the pre-bid meeting was that we won't want the procurement document, which, as you know, our documents are lengthy and sometimes cumbersome with a lot of attachments and sign-offs and affidavits, and we didn't want that to be a barrier to any of our bidders, and we wanted to be there to assist them through the process because we can't serve local product without them. We also have some great local resources as well, like a Greensburg farm that is on this award, that sometimes can be an intermediary for some of the farms. If they don't have the means to get it to us, they can sell through Greensburg Farms to get us their product from the local community, and so that's another option for our vendors that we always have available to them. But I think to answer your first question, definitely with assuming that every student is taking the milk with their meal, easily 10% of their tray is coming in local product. I mean, the milk bid that you approved a few weeks ago was just about $500,000, and we spend, about $5 million in food purchases annually. So it's a simple math there, and we probably exceed that when you start talking about all the produce. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a great item. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Any additional questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify. 5-0, and student concurs with the majority. Thank you very much. That takes us to the superintendent's report or update, if he has anything this evening, afternoon.
I do not, and I apologize.
No, you don't need to. That's fine. We will move to personnel. Dr. Michael, I believe you're taking that over this afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Brightman, board members, Dr. Wilcox. We're here requesting your approval of personnel actions as you considered earlier this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. A motion on personnel.
Madam President, move to accept personnel recommendations as presented earlier today.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Any questions on personnel? All those in favor? That's 5. No opposition and abstention. Ms. Greenwald, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, takes us to reports to the board. Ms. Greenwald, would you like to begin with student government?
Student government has nothing to report at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Harshman?
HR is scheduled to meet July 26th at 9 o'clock in the Washington Room on the 3rd floor. June's meeting was canceled because of a conflict of scheduling with a funeral I had to attend. The agenda will be posted and everyone is invited.
Thank you. Mrs. Williams?
Nothing at this time from the Finance Committee.
All right. Ms. Fisher, Policy and Development?
Yes, Policy Committee met on June 22nd. Mr. Akers, the Director of Secondary Education, joined us for that meeting. The committee made a number of small changes, mostly grammatical type corrections or wording, to the working draft of Policy JLA entitled Fundraising in Schools. We also determined that crowdfunding or crowdsourcing should be added to the policy, as it seems to be catching on as a viable fundraising tool. Staff will draft the language for the committee's consideration. That has happened since that meeting. Also, we discussed next steps for this policy, which include making a draft available online for the public in general and providing draft copies to organizations throughout the county that raise significant amounts of money for our various school programs and activities. We hope to receive comments and suggestions back from the both groups, the general public as well as the specific organizations, for consideration before a first read is offered. That first read will probably come in August. If you go to the board's website, you will find a copy of the draft policy JLA under the heading News. You could also put fundraising in the search bar, and it will take you to that portion of the website. Our next policy committee meeting is scheduled for July 12th. It begins at 9 a.m. in the board meeting room, which is right next to this auditorium. And as always, committee meetings are open to the public for viewing. So if you are of a particular interest in the fundraising policy, please join us on July 12th.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Mr. Ridenhour?
Thank you, Madam President. The Curriculum Instruction Committee did not meet, has not met since our last meeting. We will not be meeting in July for several reasons, conflicts that preclude that from occurring. We will be meeting again in August.
Thank you. And Mr. Gesford, as Chair of Facilities, is not here this afternoon, but I believe at the last meeting, and Mrs. Harshman, if I'm wrong, correct me, that there would not be a facilities meeting in July. Is that your recollection?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so we will assume there'll be one in August. Any additional reports, meetings, MABE, events, anything anyone would like to report on? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go on to future agenda items. There's 2 items the Agenda Committee discussed today. One, I believe all of you should have received a copy of the report of the Task Force on Testing and Assessments that was sent out. If you have not received that, let me know and I'll see that it's resent. We will be having a work session on August 9th for that, and we'll be developing, very much like we did on the earlier report, a response to those recommendations made by the task force. Those will be formulated into a letter, and we'll be voting on that on the 23rd. We have a deadline of September 1st to get that back to MSDE, to the Maryland State Department of Ed. The other item is staff has suggested that we as a board look at establishing a new standing committee. We have 5 right now. They're suggesting we take the diversity task force and move that into a standing committee. So the agenda committee thought that we would start that process through the policy committee, Mrs. Fisher, and look at that because standing committees are set up in our policy, and see what's involved with adding that and if there's a consensus by the board and the public to do that. So those are the 2 items. Anything on future agenda items anyone would like to bring forward? Mrs. Williams.
Yes, I noted on the 12-month board agenda calendar that we receive, on the one dated June 21st, that we have scheduled on July 19th a discussion in closed session with regard to goals and objectives. And in looking at the scheduled vacation chart, 3 of us, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Harshman, and myself, are scheduled for vacation on the 19th. And I know that we're going to have a second session on the 9th where we'll be continuing that topic, but I was wondering if there's any way that we could move the first discussion to the 9th.
Already done. We already, in agenda committee, and I should have mentioned that, so thank you, but in fact, Dr. Wilcox will not be here on the 19th, so it would be very difficult to be setting goals and objectives.
So it's taken care of.
It's all taken care of and it's been moved forward.
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you. Couldn't ask for more. Thank you very
So
much.
thank you for reminding that should have been a 3rd item.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else that we need to talk about as far as future agenda items? Then that brings us to board member comments. Mr. Ridenour, would you like to begin? Ms. Fisher?
Nothing.
Dr. Wilcox?
Nothing.
Mrs. Williams?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Everyone wants to get out early today. Mrs. Harshman?
Nothing.
Ooh, okay. Ms. Greenwald?
Ditto, nothing.
This is probably a new record. It is 1:45. It is summer. Again, thank you. We had a very productive meeting. We are adjourned.